elections and they aren't educated on the issues?
Yeah, but, I'm sorry, excuse me, yes. Through the process of voting, they can learn and become more educated about the issues on which they are voting.
And perhaps the importance of them participating in our political spheres is that they feel like they are part of our system, and though they may not be the most informed or the smartest of people to be voting on issues, they feel like their voice is being heard in our political sphere, which is important in a democracy such as America.
Let's go away from participation just for a moment, if you will. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on membership. It's one thing to be a part of a society and be a citizen, and it's another to be, for example, a new American in the American Southwest. What should our requirements for membership be?
Well, Title 8 USC Section 1401 requires that individuals who come into the United States and want to become citizens must pass a citizenship test and their knowledge of our government and our history, as well as a language test.
Additionally, they must also have been a legal resident in this country for 5 years.
So what about those who are not at that threshold? What rights do you think they should have or currently do have?
Well, persons in the U.S. Have many of the rights that citizens do. They're protected by the Bill of Rights as incorporated in the 14th Amendment through the Due Process Clause.
And I think it's important to note that the word citizen was only used 11 times in our actual Constitution by the framers, and they never actually defined the word citizen, because I believe that they viewed rights for all persons rather than just citizens.
Additionally, the Supreme Court case Sugarman versus Dugal, the Supreme Court held that the federal government as well as local governments can prevent citizens from being involved in the political process, known as the political community doctrine. And so that's one of the important rights that non-citizens do not have.
Can I ask you, if our national identity is based on liberty and equality, why do we require immigrants to learn English?
Well, the Census Bureau has predicted that by 2050, perhaps even 24% of our population will be Hispanic. And I think that there's a great fear that if these people come and don't learn English, we'll have a government that may be 25% Hispanic that won't be able to communicate with the rest of the officials, and we'll have a very high degree of difficulty functioning.
Are you arguing that we should learn English? Spanish, excuse me?
I believe that it's important that we make an effort to learn Spanish, but having English as sort of a national language provides sort of a method of unity and something that it creates sort of this sense of belonging.
Furthermore, this is an increasingly difficult problem because in previous times of massive immigration, people were coming from all over the world. And so they needed something like a universal language to bring us together, and they needed to all learn English so they could assimilate to American culture. However, today, many people are coming from Spanish-speaking countries, and since they're mostly coming from those places, there are many Spanish immigrants in this country, and they don't have to make an effort to learn English as much as previous periods of immigration.
So would you argue that a country like South Africa that has 11 official languages, that they can have no sense of belonging since they don't have one language?
Perhaps that their sense of belonging is compromised by their acceptance of diversity, and something similar to the United States, where we believe that you can speak any language that you want and still be here and be a part of our political process, but that certain things may not be attainable to you, and that feeling of part of your community and also participating in a lot of...
Just one more follow-up. If you're born here and you don't speak English, then you're a citizen. But if you choose to come here and you don't learn English, you do not become a citizen, right?
Right.
So we do not allow the door to be open to people that don't speak English if they're not born here.
Well, but they can also retain their other language. It's not as they have to give up their mother tongue in order to come to America.
And some have suggested implementing English as official language because English is not technically our official language. And that would mean that all official business is conducted in English and would kind of help foster the sense of belonging. And people may, like as in South Africa, be able to have all their individual languages at home, but we have to come together for these special, very important parts of our...
And students born here who don't speak English, it's not as if they won't learn it. Oftentimes they grow up in English-speaking communities or can learn English through the ESL programs of their local schools.
Additionally, the Supreme Court case Lau versus Nichols held that we must provide ESL, as to not provide ESL would be a violation of the Equal Protection Clause, as it is tantamount to discriminating based on country of origin.
We're kind of in your salad bowl here a little bit, the metaphor that you brought up earlier rather than the melting pot we grew up with.
So in the book that Bellamy refers to, uses this quote, he talks talks about the difference between vertical and horizontal inclusion or exclusion processes. Language might be easier than religion. Is it possible for us to be an inclusive nation for Islamic people?
Yes, I think it's completely possible for us to be, for us to foster a sense of belonging for Islamic people. As Obama stressed yesterday in his address to the nation, our war on terror has never been a war on Islam, and that and he mentioned that President Bush stressed the same thing as well, and we have in no way ever intended to sort of make Islam this point of contention.
Furthermore, in the Middle East, there have been recent revolutions, and that shows that they do want democracy, and so that makes them compatible, I believe.
But America has also, for many years, has been a predominantly Christian country, and while we ourselves have no kind of discrimination against Islam, our high protection of speech, as seen in the First Amendment, and can lead to discrimination, as seen by recent Florida Reverend Terry Jones burning a copy of the Quran.
Also, in the case West Virginia versus Barnett, the Supreme Court held that said that compulsory unification of ideas only leads to unanimity of the graveyard, and they said that members of the Jehovah's Witness faith could not be compelled to say the Pledge of Allegiance.
So you're arguing for limited government, is that what you're saying? And that limited government is powerful in this case? So if we believe in the notion of limited government in our system, what can they do about someone burning the Quran?
Well, I think that's one of our the most important costs of rights in our society is that we have to, because we limit the government and we give so much freedom to the people, that we have to be able to accept these kind of things in our society despite the dangers that they may provide for us or our troops across the country.
And in the Supreme Court case, West Virginia versus Barnett, it does provide this threshold between freedom of speech and breaching on violating others' rights if you are to commit an act that or participate in speech that creates imminent lawless action.
I believe that's the case, Brandenburg versus
So, to get your logic right, you're saying it's a good thing that we don't force people to do the Pledge of Allegiance, but it is a good thing to force them to do civic education.
And mandatory service.
Yeah. How do you work with those contributions?
Well, political scientists such as Larry J. Sabato, who have proposed mandatory service, have felt that he would A, have to do so through an amendment, and B, he hopes that this would kind of create a sense of belonging, such as those in World War II, when the entire nation was behind the movement of going abroad and fighting what was clearly something that was wrong. And so he's hoping that through this amendment we can achieve more bridging social capital and learn how to, as noted by Robert, breach differences.
Additionally, the Pledge of Allegiance is a very sort of specific whereas civic education and mandatory service would be broader and wouldn't require citizens to sort of choose to say or be saying one specific set of things. Mandatory service would include a number of different possibilities, whether it be military service or voluntary service, and civic education includes a very broad array of subjects that does not involve simply one idea. Also, mandatory, I'm actually against mandatory service, but a less extreme version of that could be mandatory service in schools. And you could create maybe a certain amount of volunteer hours before you graduate high school, or you could get a stipend for a certain amount of voluntary hours before college. And this would not be the kind of 2 years that Larry J. Sabato suggests that you have to take off from your personal life here and go volunteer abroad or somewhere here, but would be a less extreme version.
Is that consistent with our commitment to rights? Mandatory service, is it consistent with our commitment to individual rights?
No, it's not. No. Okay. It's not consistent with our commitment to rights. At the founding fathers weighed the possibilities of a classical Republican society or one of a Lockean view of rights, and they chose to be more rights-focused and not go with the obligations that were required of classical Republican
However,
unity.
one could make the argument that we've become too committed to our rights, and that the imposition of mandatory service would recreate this sort of sense of unity that they had at the founding that we've sort of come away from because we've grown so protective of our individual rights.
So what's the solution?
One solution that has proven to work so far is that many high schools and many colleges require that their students